You got me lifted, shifted higher than the ceiling. And ooh, it's the ultimate feeling. You got me lifted, feeling so gifted. Sugar, how you get so fly? Sugar, sugar, how you get so fly? Sugar, sugar, how you get so fly?
Today we are starting our first interview in our research for the discrepancy between the appearance and reality with the health associated with vitamin water. And we are sitting down with Kari Reed, and she is going to tell us some of her background with the food industry.
Sure. I started to become interested in the food industry and what they were doing as an organization when I was in undergrad. I did my undergrad degree in marketing and graphic design, and for a lot of my projects I had to do a lot of research on current marketing of products, and then I had to develop my own campaigns for a lot of projects. And in that, I started to become curious in how a lot of food products, particularly food products, were marketed versus what was actually going on, or was actually in them, or how much people seem to ignore the reality of a product because of the marketing or because of how it looked, and a lot of what we learned to do as marketers in this program was how to do that. How do you make someone buy something or get around the bad parts of a product, or make them less obvious so that people will buy them. That was our jobs, and which was fine, except for when I started to think about these are the things that we're ingesting, it made me a little uncomfortable. So I started being really, really intentional about finding what food products were marketed as healthy and really weren't, or I became a lot more aware of the things that I bought when I was in the grocery store, or the things that I ate when I was out, or the things that I even cooked for myself at home.
Wonderful. In talking about the vitamin water, the health aspects of it, what do you know about the lawsuit that is currently between the Center of Science for the Public Interest and Coca-Cola?
A little bit. I heard about the lawsuit initially on the Rachel Maddow show, which is just a news program that is on in the evenings that I watch occasionally. And she actually covered the story right after Coke had issued its statement about the possibility of people believing that vitamin water was a health food or not. And so I was really curious because it kind of fit right into all the things that I had become interested in before with the marketing versus the reality. And so I did a little research on my own on the vitamin water lawsuit, and was really curious, not only because of the statements that Coke issued, but also the lawsuit itself. I mean, vitamin water is kind of marketed very obviously as something that is good for you. I mean, whether it's supposed to be a health food drink or a sports drink, or that's all kind of up in the air. We can't really say, but as someone who works in marketing, I can say that it's marketed as a health food drink. I mean, their slogans include vitamins plus water, all you need, or vitamins plus water, it's in your hand, that kind of stuff. That doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room for what they meant, not to mention the name, which is vitamin water, but if you look on the label, on the back, you actually see that it has, just gargantuan amounts of sugar and calories, almost the equivalent to soda. Which everyone is kind of up in arms about right now because it's not good for you, and people are claiming that it's led to the obesity problem in America, and vitamin water is kind of right up on par with soda, yet it's marketed to be something that's healthy for you because it has vitamins, and so the lawsuit in of itself is, from what I understand, kind of based on largely in part on what's called the jelly bean rule, which is something that, well, I'll explain why it was named the jelly bean rule in a second, but the FDA actually put it into effect over 20 years ago. That basically what it's saying is that you can't take a product that is, in essence, unhealthy, and then inject it with something that's not bad for you and then call it health food. They call it the jelly bean rule because that's the example that is mostly used. You can't have a jelly bean and then claim that it prevents heart disease because it has no cholesterol. It's still not a health product, and so it's kind of clear to me anyway that Coke has kind of violated that rule in a big way. But on the other side of the spectrum, everything that you need to know is on the label. you know, it's just a matter of what people have chosen to read and not read. So it's kind of this catch-22. It's like, who is wrong and who is right? We don't know. But I do know that at this point, the judge actually issued, the judge proceeding the case actually issued a statement just this past week that it was actually a very long 22-page statement, but that the case will move on to the next level of persecution because Coke didn't seem to offer any valid defense of themselves. Mostly they just kept saying that it's absurd that someone could have thought that this was a health food drink, but they're not actually defending the...
Coke was initially pushing for the dismissal of the case.
Right. And that didn't go through. So it's proceeding on it, and Coke's most recent statement is that this newest development in the case does not indicate that they're guilty in any way. It just means that it's going to move on, and that people shouldn't interpret it as guilt.
You had specifically mentioned the amount of sugar is directly on the label, but most people don't know that the exact name of the sugar is crystalline fructose. Do you know anything in regards to that?
I do.
Okay.
Crystalline fructose was introduced into the average consumer's diet about 20 years ago. And a lot of people compare it directly to high fructose corn syrup.
Right.
Because they're kind of similar in properties, but they're not actually similar chemically.
Right.
High fructose corn syrup is about half glucose and half fructose. And crystalline fructose is about 98% fructose. And then it's chemically compounded, that last 2%, with about 1 milligram of arsenic, some heavy metal compounds, lead, and chloride. And none of which are things that I really would love to put in my body. I mean, I'm sure that, you know, the FDA has said over and over again that there has been nothing that indicates in the last 20 years that this chemical should be removed from the American diet. But just on some level, there's something about even 1 milligram of arsenic, ingesting it on purpose, just doesn't seem cool to me. But it has a lot of economic benefits. Has a lot of economic benefits as far as the food industry is concerned. I mean, it's an intense sweetener, so not a lot of it needs to be used in order to get a lot of you know.
Do you
bang
think
for your buck.
that's the reason behind the push for using it in drinks more than specifically table sugar?
I think that's probably one of the big reasons. I mean, the food industry is, at the end of the day, an industry. That means they have to make money in order to survive. And so saving money, and by using things like crystalline fructose, because they only need to use a tiny, tiny amount. And also, you know, as a kind of a side added benefit, this chemical also like extends the shelf life of food, and it also it's used in a lot of protein bars and like dry foods like bread.
Okay.
And that kind of stuff. And people actually don't even associate it with things like bread, or especially not health bars. But it actually keeps them from drying out fast. So they can be on the shelf longer, basically, which means that there's a higher percentage of a chance that they'll get sold, which means there's a higher chance that the industry will make money, et cetera, et cetera. It all goes back to profit, but it's business.
Right.
I mean, so we can't, it's easy to sit here and condemn, you know, the industry for wanting to make money, but at the end of the day, we live in a capitalist society, and they have to make money to survive. So
Absolutely.
You know, it happens. But this chemical is also on the negative side. So while the FDA has said, you know, there's no reason, we can't see any valid reason that it should be removed from the consumer's diet. It's actually been linked in a lot of studies to causing liver cirrhosis and liver failure, because something like high fructose corn syrup, while not great for you in theory, because it's only about half fructose, and the other half is glucose. Glucose can be metabolized in any of your body cells. So when you ingest it, it can be metabolized in your digestive system, like there. Fructose must be metabolized in your liver. There's no other cells in your body that can handle the chemical compounds that make it up. So, you know, that's kind of a big deal. So because it has to be processed through one organ, you know, in theory, and it makes sense, you know, scientifically, and what we know biologically of our bodies, that if you eat enough of it, if you ingest enough of it, just like if you were to ingest enough alcohol, you know, the cells in your liver can only do so much work before they shut down. I mean, it's a finite kind of process.